to the Prophecy Club. We are going to continue talking about the Russian bear awakes. Now, in case you've missed the last few broadcasts, let me briefly go through what we covered in the last broadcast to bring you up to date with where we're going. Ezekiel 38 and 39 both say that there's coming a time when the Russians come down to attack Israel. Okay, we understand that, but that's not specifically what we're talking about today. We also know that the angel that spoke to Dmitri said that the fall of America would start with an internal revolution, that Russia and many other nations would attack and defeat America. But in the last broadcast, we talked about how the Russian bear's military buildup is taking place. We talked about how Russia, over the last few years, and between now and 2020, that's their target date. They're trying to get everything done by 2020. I can't imagine why, okay? They say that they're preparing and building new ships, planes, and submarines. In addition, new naval bases, and they're using new technology, more undetectable missiles, airplanes, and submarines. More testing of our readiness and border defense by flying over it, near it, to see what we do in certain circumstances. They have doubled their military spending. Now, in the meantime, what has the United States been doing militarily? Well, we've been cutting missiles, or at least we're talking about it. We have also been talking about cutting money and men and equipment. We've allowed homosexuals into the military, and America's concerned with shoving national health care down our throats. The feds have been purchasing massive amounts of ammunition and automatic rifles. So while Russia has been preparing to defeat America, America has been preparing to defeat itself, as in certain federal agencies appear to be preparing for at least something real bad. Now, the next topic is submarines. One article says new Russian submarines are so silent that the United States Navy calls them black holes. Did you know that Russia is building submarines that are so quiet, the article says, that the U.S. military cannot detect them? These black hole submarines can freely approach the coastlines of the United States without fear of being detected whenever they want. In fact, a nuclear-powered attack submarine armed with long-range cruise missiles sailed around the Gulf of Mexico for several weeks a few months ago without being detected. Russia is launching a new class of subs that have, quote, advanced stealth technology. The United States Navy openly acknowledges that they cannot track these submarines when they are submerged. That means that the Russians are able to sail right up to our borders, right up to our beaches, and launch nuclear weapons whenever they want. You remember in 1984, the real popular movie came out called The Hunt for Red October. Remember it had Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin in it. Director was John McTiernan. Well, it was talking about how Soviet Union and their best submarine captain in their newest submarine violates orders and heads for the USA trying to defect in a, quote, nearly silent propulsion system used for the submarine. The Brie-class Russian submarine is the new submarine that they're all bragging about, and they're in the process of building more of them. It holds 20 missiles. Each missile carries 6 warheads. Now, that means each submarine can take out 120 cities, because most of these warheads, these are not Nagasaki, Hiroshima-style warheads. These are approximately 250 times more powerful than that. Matter of fact, the Bible says that the earth is moved at the taking of Babylon. In other words, when all of these nuclear detonations go off all across America, it's going to shake the earth, and that may be when the earth reels to and fro like a drunkard, Isaiah verses 1 through 19, and turneth upside down and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. These multiplied warheads, multiplied by 10, Brie-class submarines. So if they have 10 Brie-class submarines, which the article says they're in the process of building, that means they can take out 1,200 U.S. cities. Now, for just a moment, try to imagine if just the top 100 cities were taken out in America, just the top 100. What would happen to America? As a matter of fact, if just one city were taken out, what would happen to America? Well, our electric grid would probably be down for a long time. Now, if you multiply 120 nuclear detonations by the 10 Brie-class subs, you're talking about some 1,200 cities they could take out. Next headline, Russian Navy to begin sea trials of 2 new nuclear subs this summer. The Russian Navy is expected to receive 40 new warships and auxiliary vessels this year, including a variety of surface ships of various classes in addition to the nuclear submarines. The Russian Defense Ministry is currently carrying out a massive rearmament for the Navy and Air Force as part of a series of modernization efforts. So while the Russians are building up for war, America is tearing down for war. Now, I know that some of you may not want to believe that God is speaking today, but let me just say that Amos 3:7 says, "Surely the Lord God would do nothing except he revealeth his secret to his servants, the prophets." So that means that if you believe just in the Bible, just between Genesis and Revelation, then you are not believing that God is talking today. And the Bible clearly says that he is. Now, I could spend a whole broadcast, maybe I should, on how God is still talking today. But you've got to understand that there are prophets and holy servants of God that God is still speaking to today. Now, he doesn't talk very often, but when he's talking about bringing down the number one Christian nation on the globe, i.e. America, he's going to talk. He's going to war us. Just like it says, surely the Lord God would do nothing except he revealeth his secret to his servants, the prophets. So that means that before he takes down America, he is going to tell us and warn us. And in this case, God has been telling us and warning us for almost 40 years through the mouths of many holy prophets and servants. One of them was Henry Groover, a dearly beloved brother in the Lord. He says, December 14th, 1986, he said he was in Wales. Now, Henry Groover walks and prays over cities. He's walked over 1,000 cities. I mean, he gets a map and systematically walks up and down every city and walks up and down every street in the city. When he's finished, he goes to the high place over the city, raises his hands, and reclaims the land for God. And boy, does he have some fantastic stories to tell of how God has delivered him from all kinds of things. Matter of fact, he's not just walked these here in America, but I know he's walked them in Israel and Japan and many of the nations. He says, 1986, December 14th, I was on top of the Eagle Tower at the Carnarvon Castle. I was overlooking the Irish Sea toward the North Sea, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, the tip of Scotland, Greenland, Iceland, up in that area. All of a sudden, I was lifted above the earth, looking down on the earth like a globe. As I looked down on the earth, I saw all of the massive amounts of all kinds of ships and airplanes. They were coming up above Norway out of this inlet. They headed down between the United States and Europe. They literally covered the whole Atlantic. Then I looked over on the globe at the United States, and I saw jagged lines, like they draw to show that communications are coming out of these radio communication towers. Now, in 1986, he didn't know that he was looking at what would be future cell phone towers. But of course now he remembers back on the vision, and he says they're cell phone towers. But see, 1986, we didn't have cell phone towers. All of a sudden, he said these these jagged lines, began to sprinkle down on the earth like dust. And he said, oh no, they're not getting through. They're not getting through. They don't know what is happening. They're totally oblivious. Then he said, I began to see all of these submarines emerging from under the surface. I was surprised at how close they were to our borders. They were in our territorial waters. Then I saw missiles come out, and they'd hit eastern coastal cities of the United States. Then I looked across the country where my family was over in the northwest side, and I saw submarines. I saw the missiles come out and hit all up and down the western coastal cities. I cried out and I said, oh God, when will this be? And what will be the sign of its coming? He said, then I heard an audible voice speak from behind me and say, when Russia opens her doors and lets the masses go, the free world will occupy themselves with transporting, feeding, and caring for the masses and will let down their weapons and cry peace and safety. Then sudden destruction will come. Now, is he the only one that's seen that? Well, of course, Dimitri Duduman was also shown that. But how about Brie Keaton? Now, who's Brie Keaton? Brie Keaton is also an intercessor. She's walked and prayed over many cities across America and also in other nations, much like Henry Gruver. A lot of people call her Henry Gruver's protege, you might say. But then she was also sent to the Congo some 5 years ago now. And in the Congo, she has many fascinating stories of how the angel of God would come to her and protect her and guide her and direct her. Now she's led about 52,000 pygmies to the Lord. So I believe she's someone that we should listen to. This is not someone, neither one of these are just small people in the Lord. These are generals for the Lord. And she says, I was in Israel, in Sodom and Gomorrah. I was directed there because God told me to go to Sodom and Gomorrah, literally by the audible voice of God, to pray for the release of oil. She says, I was at Sodom and Gomorrah, and the stench of sulfur was overwhelming. I was on my knees, and suddenly 2 angels picked me up, one under each arm, and carried me back to the United States of America. They held me very high above the center of the country, so I could see both coasts. Everything was clear. The angels said they would show me things to come. As I looked where they directed, I saw several nukes hit both of our coasts. Then I saw war breaking out in the center of the country, a lot of fighting, and it started spreading out. There was a lot of death and destruction. I wanted to weep, but instead the angels brought me back to Israel and set me down in Sodom and Gomorrah again. Immediately before me, the Lord opened up hell like a lid. I looked down into hell and saw tens of thousands of people with their arms in the air, just screaming and crying out in some foreign language I couldn't understand. The stench of sulfur and smoke was coming out of the hole, and though I could not understand their language, I knew what they were saying. They were screaming, help me, get me out of here, help me. I knew these were the souls of the people that were there from the judgment that fell upon Sodom and Gomorrah. The ones who died there, the Lord said there was no help for them. They brought judgment upon themselves by their wickedness. After that, there was a knowing in my spirit that judgment also was coming to America, because America has turned her back on the true and living God and refused to follow his ways. They have run after idols, witchcraft, murder, and every wicked thing instead of following the holy God. Now, back to the story about the submarines. Russia has been spending over 20 trillion rubles, that's about $650 billion, on new weapons from now through the 2020 deadline, as I mentioned. Some 4 trillion rubles, about 132 billion, spent on 8 hunter-killer Yasin-class nuclear submarines. So, did you hear that? Between now and 2020, some $657 billion on building up their military, some $132 billion on hunter-killer nuclear submarines. Next headline, Silent Sub, Russians' noiseless Brie-class nuclear submarine immersed. Now this says it'll become operational in 2013. Has a new generation of nuclear reactors which allows the submarine to dive to a depth of 480 meters. That's real deep. It can spend up to 3 months underwater. And here, listen up. We'll be right back after this message. In 1980, an angel came to Dmitry Duduman and told him that it is written in the Bible and that America will be defeated in 1 hour by Russia. I just made a brand new DVD covering all of the secular, real-life proof that Russia really is preparing to do exactly that. Topics are Arise, Devour Much Flesh, Russia and Prophecy, Russia Now Rich and Strong, Russia's numerous military expansions, Ukraine, and how it is making the bear angry. Russia is warning the U.S., but we're not listening. Russia is building their military, modernizing submarines, aircraft, missiles, and their army, while the U.S. is downsizing and filled with traitors and weaknesses. 2.5 hours, gift of $30. Go to prophecyclub.com or call 785-266-1112. That's The Russian Bear Rises at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Order today. It's time for the famous Prophecy Club Summer Blowout. You get 6 DVDs of your choice by calling 785-266-1112. Valued at $30 each, that's $180, all for a gift of just $100. Call 785-266-1112. Grab your cell phone, 785-266-1112. Not available on the internet. 785-266-1112. 6 DVDs for a gift of $100. Call now. And now, back to the program. Has a new generation of nuclear reactors which allows the submarine to dive to a depth of 480 meters. That's real deep. It can spend up to 3 months underwater. And here, listen up, it is almost silent compared to previous generations of submarines. This submarine is armed with a new missile system, which has from 16 to 20 solid-fuel Bulava intercontinental ballistic missiles. The rocket is able to overcome any prospective missile defense system as it is fast and can't be shot down. Now, in addition to it having a faster burn rate, we talked about that in yesterday's program, some people also are claiming that it changes directions. In other words, it doesn't go in a straight trajectory. It zigzags as it goes through it, so they can't tell where it's going and they can't shoot it down. The article goes on. Over the next 8 years, Russia plans to have built 10 Brie-class submarines by 2020. That's a different article, and yes, it has some of the same points, but that is the point. It's not just one source saying that Russia is doing this. There's a lot of sources saying 10 more Brie-class Russian submarines will soon be on duty. Next topic. Now, let's talk about just how difficult or how easy it would be to defeat American defenses. The Russians, the RPSR, whatever that is, has new technology into their military systems. They go on to say, 2 new weapon systems were displayed by Russia over the Ukrainian disaster. The laser system that destroyed the latest stealth U.S. drone near Murmansk. The unarmed Su-24 that jammed the Aegis radar system on the Donald Cook destroyer for 90 minutes in the Black Sea, rendering it defenseless. Let me read that again. Did you hear that? This is saying that Russia has the capability of jamming the radar on our seagoing and maybe even, probably even, our land-based defense system. Let me read this again. The unarmed Su-24 that jammed the Aegis radar system on the Donald Cook destroyer for some 90 minutes in the Black Sea rendered it defenseless. Are you hearing me? It's saying that Russia can shoot anything out of the water and probably anything out of the land dead anytime it wants to. The article goes on to say Russia has quietly, during the Ukraine crisis, been operationally using 2 different models of what is called the RPSR, which means Remotely Piloted Suicide Reconnaissance. This is a Russian deep black aircraft program in which an existing jet fighter, a MiG-29 Fulcrum, or interceptor MiG-25 Foxbat, is shown as an ultra-wideband sensor drone able to detect, locate, and report high-capacity, real-time data encrypted links to the ground, any and all active emitters, be they radar or laser. There have been no weapons observed, thus it is unarmed, but the RPSR is nevertheless a lethal weapon because it is an airborne information vacuum cleaner, sucking up all of the information to directly enable defense, avoidance, or hard kill. The latter is aptly called destruction of enemy air defenses, or DEAD, and we will assume that they have armed ones fully operational yet to be displayed. Or at least we can see what and how they would do so, and why. And please understand that this is a typical quantum advance over typical drone technology. The RPSR is covered with the deep black program, fruit of Russia's Area 51 type equivalent. This RPSR has an ultimate advanced external sensing version of the U.S. Smart Skin technology, but this one makes the U.S. developmental version seem dumb by comparison. Now, what's it talking about? It's saying that they have this wrap. It's kind of like putting a car wrap on. In other words, it would be like spray painting a car, except for you could just peel the paint right off, okay? So this external sensing, this what they call smart skin technology that the Russians have, makes the thing invisible, and they're using it on apparently every place they can. Let's put it that way. The RPSR is covered with a deep black program fruit of Russia's Area 51 equivalent. The RPSR sensor skin is apparently wrapped around the airframe, something like the full way ad wraps are applied to cars. Air crew space is now crammed with electronics and other gear. In other words, the bear is ahead of the eagle. Continuing. It would not surprise me, the article goes on to say, to learn that they have laser systems, both land, sea, and airborne, that use this data flow in real time and act on it. This is a major leap in airborne computer technology, and we suspect it is artificial intelligence at work in ways that we have not seen before, and one to be admired and at the same time feared. This says the U.S. is now outfoxed, radar blindsided, and will be wiped out in any naval conflict, which is why Russia tried to lure them in and destroy them over Syria. Both Russia and China now have taken quantum leaps over and beyond the U.S. and welcomes the chance to annihilate the U.S. forces used in a conflict. If America collapses, the invasion which will follow will be as with the Russians in Germany after World War II. Have no doubt this is being planned, and the U.S. will be wide open once its fleets are destroyed. Putin and the Chinese are loving this. Next topic. Now let's talk about missiles. The heading says, Russia to deploy 22 new ballistic missiles in 2014. Next headline, Panama's president tweets pictures of missiles found hidden in North Korean ship's sugar cargo after it sailed from Cuba. Now, I'm looking at a picture of a missile that's hidden down in the cargo holds of this boat that was going from North Korea to Cuba. Okay, so what's going on? Probably we can count on the fact that not only is North Korea and Cuba and Nicaragua and Central America and Mexico probably secreted away, hidden up with all kinds of military attack programs and military hardware. Headline, Russia tests multi-head ICBM. The SS-27 Model 2 is Russia's newest ICBM and has been touted by Russian officials as designed specifically to defeat U.S. missile defenses. There is evidence that the Russians have violated the START Arms Treaty by developing the SS-27 Model 2 with multiple warheads. These ballistic missile systems can effectively engage two targets within a minute at the range of up to 280 kilometers. Will be provided to all Russian ground forces missile brigades by 2018. Notice they're all keeping it under that date, 2020. The missiles have a non-ballistic flight path that is difficult for the enemy to predict and are guided throughout their flight, which has no match in the world for its tactical specifications. What does that mean? A non-ballistic flight path means that it changes directions. It doesn't just go nice and in a nice little arc. Okay, it jerks left, right, up, down, okay, all over. Next topic, traitors and weakness. In 1997, Virginia Boldea, Dmitry Duduman's daughter, said she heard her father's voice, meaning Dmitry Duduman, in the early morning hours. She says, I got my recorder and went to his bedside, but he would not let me record it. I don't remember everything he said, but I would like to share with you that which I do remember. My father stated, the Lord showed me a very large bear. It was as big as a building, and it began to do battle with an unarmed man. Do you see what I've shown you? A voice said. This is how it will be when the hardships come over America. No one will be able to defend her. Only those that trust in me will be spared. Everything will start, listen to this, as a heavy rain on a sunny day, at a time you least expect it. There was more, but I don't remember the rest. Virginia Boldea. In other words, the Russian bear is going to strike swiftly at a time when we are not prepared. So, are we expecting it today? I would say no. You don't hear anything about this on the 6 o'clock news. You don't hear anything, any place, about Russia being any kind of a problem, or even that Russia's building up our military, or even that America is tearing down our military. None of that stuff. Oh, but we have plenty of time to have fun in all of our talk shows. But unfortunately, the truth is not getting out in America. Headline, ex-CIA agent Obama planned massive false flag attack on America. Okay, what is a false flag? I looked it up, and this is the exact definition. A false flag is a covert operation conducted by governments, corporations, or other organizations which are designed to, listen to this, deceive the public in such a way that the operations appear as if they are carried out by other entities. In other words, it's like the Reichstag fire, okay? When Hitler wanted to be able to eliminate some people, he started the Reichstag fire, although he was the one that started it, or his people, and then he blamed it on other people that gave him permission to do what he wanted to do. All right, now, what has really happened? As I said in several more broadcasts a few months ago, back in, 2003 or 4 or 5, somewhere in there, I had a dream. God showed me that there's going to be a series of explosions all across America. Regardless of who actually plants the bomb or who they blame it on, the people behind it would be international bankers, and it would do two things. It would put billions of dollars in the hands of the international bankers and throw America into a financial tailspin. Then, of course, I made the whole DVD on it called The Next 9/11, and I came up with like 9 other sources that verified this. For example, Congressman Kurt Weldon was the vice chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and he uncovered a plot to set explosions in 10 cities. He couldn't get the authorities to act, so he published it in a book called Countdown to Terror. I have that book in my library. And I might also add, consequently, he lost his seat in the next election. The 10 cities were Valdez, Alaska, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Chicago, Miami, and Houston. Other prophets had seen the same thing, and many of them were in the same cities. For example, we had Doug Metzger in to speak, and he saw suitcase nuclear bombs go off in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Orlando, Denver, Seattle, and San Francisco. Then Michael Boldea was shown in a dream where Dimitri Duduman visited him and showed him a vision of suitcase nuclear bombs going off in California, Illinois, Chicago, Arizona, Washington State, Florida, and New York. Then another prophet saw New York, Washington, D.C., Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. So we have 4 different people seeing the same thing in many of the same cities. So, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a thing be established. Well, we're running out of time. I will just have to finish this in the next broadcast. But in the meantime, thank you for listening, thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. In 1980, an angel came to Dimitri Duduman and told him that it is written in the Bible and that America will be defeated in 1 hour by Russia. I just made a brand new DVD covering all of the secular, real-life proof that Russia really is preparing to do exactly that. Topics are Arise, Devour Much Flesh, Russia and Prophecy, Russia Now Rich and Strong, Russia's numerous military expansions, Ukraine, and how it is making the bear angry. Russia is warning the U.S., but we're not listening. Russia is building their military, modernizing submarines, aircraft, missiles, and their army, while the U.S. is downsizing and filled with traitors and weaknesses. 2.5 hours, gift of $30. Go to prophecyclub.com or call 785-266-1112. That's the Russian Bear Rises at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Order today. At the burning bush, God promised to give Moses a land flowing with milk and honey. We believe the milk is natural gas and the honey is yellow-colored crude oil. There are 30 scriptures in the Bible which say in the last days massive amounts of oil will be discovered in Israel, and we believe we've been given the directive to use this prophesied oil and gas to fund worldwide soul winning. If you have questions about our vision, call